I was a young black man in Hollywood, unsupervised.
Wow. Have you ever wanted to have a dream job and made so many mistakes in your life you didn't think it was even possible?
I didn't know what to do with the money I was making. Sometimes hand them out, homeless, broke.
Today's guest has been there and done that, and you will be very, very inspired by the one, the only.
It's a dirty truth with Deante Young. Hit a main course, yeah, the entree done. Pull up on the gang, all the fly day ones. Tune in, come and see what Deante done. It's a dirty truth with Deante Young. Hit a main course, yeah, the entree done. Pull up on the gang, all the fly day ones. Tune in, come and see what Deante done. Like, just vibe with it.
The amazing Harold Crawford. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm well.
You're well?
Yeah, I'm not good, well.
That's good to know, man.
Yeah.
Listen, I just think that in today's world, we need more heroic stories, and your story is extremely heroic. I do want to start at the very beginning of your greatness. I know I asked you recently, I said, what would you consider to be the highlight of your life? And you basically said, right now, because you are 55 years in show business, Hollywood. You are what is the official word? Costumer?
Costumer, yeah.
Costumer.
I'm a costumer, yeah.
And you are considered really an unsung hero because, like we said, all the costume designers, they get the bright lights and things like that. Mm-hmm. But you are the unsung hero. You have worked on so many excellent productions, from television series to films and everything in between since the 1960s.
Well, the 70s, since the 70s.
Well, I tell you what.
I got to say that because that's when I started, in the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's actually really powerful. And I just think that this is a special scenario because not everyone gets to have a long-lasting career. And what I like to tell our listeners is that it's not where you begin, it's where you're going, and it's also how you finish. And I know that you had a very interesting life growing up. So we'll talk about all the glamorous stuff, but I do want to kind of paint the picture that, like I said, you've worked with some of the biggest names in the business, and you've accomplished so many things. You have been honored. You have honors coming up. You're still not done. You're far from done. But you come from humble beginnings, and when you were a child, did you have aspirations to be in the movie business?
No. I knew nothing about it. As a child, I grew up on a reservation, so I didn't know anything about the film industry or anything about entertainment, period. And that, I think, came later, in time. I had the great fortune of my mom, who was the oldest of 8 daughters. Her mother made clothes, so my mother was a seamstress. And my dad, at one point, he was a tailor. So I kind of got those genes in there. And the thing about working in the film industry as a costumer, that came later in life. There was a whole other things that were going on in my life that led up to that. So that's how I would explain that.
Oh, wow. Now, I know you said that you come from California, and you went to, you said Compton High School?
Yeah.
What was
Still
that?
Island, Compton, 1968, baby.
Well, that's phenomenal. All I've ever heard is like dangerous stories of Compton. So what was it like when you were going through that?
Growing up in Compton then, it was predominantly black. With other races and other people that, of course, it was predominantly. But the issues that they're having now, we didn't have that. It wasn't nothing territorial. We were like, house parties. We were partying. I mean, this was in the 60s. I mean, you had the Temptations. You had, the shot, you had the Spinners. You had the OJs. You had, and then you had the 70s. And then, the hippies. So then, when I was at Compton High in 66 to 68, it was a very cool place to be.
Wow.
I think later on it started to change over a period of time because of the demographics and the way people were moving around, and everything's more transient.
Yeah.
back then it was settled. You know, you had a home, you had everything. But then later it became, the more transient it became, then the more it changed.
Okay. Now, was there ever a point when you were in high school and you said, okay, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life? Because I know me personally, when I was in high school, I had no clue what I wanted to do.
No.
That's about as honest as it gets.
No, I mean, what was I? I was 17, 18 years old, and in high school. I was in high school,
Right.
I mean, without knowing where that would go from here or there. The one thing that I'd say that worked in my favor was that as an art, I studied art. So I did paintings, I did illustrations. While I was in Palm Springs High, I took art and theater. And then later in Compton, that was one of the things that I did, was I studied art at Compton. But there wasn't a whole lot with regards to me wanting to be in the film industry. There was one time now. I got to say, there was one time. When I ran away from home, my dad asked me what I wanted to do. I told him I wanted to go to high school, finish high school, go to college. Somehow, he ended up taking me to Beverly Hills to an acting class.
Wow. Is that how everything got started?
I probably the very beginning of how everything got started. But, I fell miserably in the class.
Wow.
But later on, I ended up going to a fashion institute. Or at that time, it was a school of business for fashion, but it's now one of the most recognizable fashion institutes in the country.
That's incredible.
And from there, that evolved into me working in the film industry.
Okay, so what was your first, your big break? Everyone has the proverbial big break.
What, in film?
Yeah.
As a costume?
Yeah, breaking in.
I had a lot of breaks. But with regards to working as a costumer in film.
Yeah, getting started.
I would say the first thing would be Book of Numbers. I think 1971, 72, with Raymond St. Jacques, Frida Payne, and Philip Michael Thomas before he became Miami Vice. Miami Vice.
He was doing stuff back then?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we shot that in Dallas, Texas. I think it was 1971. But then I think one of the more iconic movies that I would say has relevance for me to everyone else is Cornbread Ole and Me.
Who was in that?
Lawrence Fishburne. I worked with him when he was 12 years old.
12? Holy smokes.
Yeah. So that's one of my, with Rosalind Cash, and, those were the iconic black actors. So it was, to be able to, when I look back and think about the actors and actresses that I worked with back then, and they were trailblazers. What they did, the challenges that they took on as actors.
Yeah.
And then, here I am, a costumer, behind the scenes, taking on challenges. They were the same, but the positions were different.
Yeah. So what type of thing do you have to really understand in order to be even a good costumer, let alone a great one? Is it just you have to understand how to match things together, or I'm just curious?
I think it's just a working knowledge of clothes. Anybody can be a costumer. If you can sell clothes,
yeah,
you can be a costumer because you understand garment, you understand fabric, you understand the weight, you understand how to put it together. The difference is what we do is shot out of continuity. But then someone walks into the store, they want something, and you put it together for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have a designer who's ever designed all of those things. Well, then, of course, you're going to lay them out accordingly, and that's what people sell. So it's pretty much the same. So the difference is you're not creating something on film that's a vision or somebody's idea, bringing it to reality.
Yeah.
And then again, when someone walks into the store and says, "Hey, I need this outfit," they have a vision, and you make that a reality. So that's
That's really a great thing to kind of internalize, is that you just kind of have to have, kind of like they say, an eye for talent is almost probably the same thing. It's not lost on me that you got started late 60s, early 70s. The country was very, very racially unsettled at the time, and there was a lot of things. The assassination of Dr. King is just happened right when you were in at the end of your high school career. And breaking into the industry, I've always heard that there was a lot of racism that African Americans had to face. Did you face any of that when you tried to break into the business, or in the early years of that?
yeah. Now I always tell people, for me, coming up in the 70s in the industry, there was two types of racism. There was the one that was subtle, and then there was the other one that was very blatant. Now, what actors encountered was not the same as what we encountered behind the camera.
Yeah.
It was, of course, it was intense. It was this, it was everything. But behind the camera, there was just a handful of us working as costumers, or hair, makeup, a lighting back then, because that was rare. So what they wanted to do was to have some faces of color behind the camera. The government said, "Hey, this is what we're going to do." So they created programs, they created opportunities. And I happened to fall in, because of what I did, I fell into that category. So, as an apprentice.
Were you protected because of the things they put in place?
When you say protected, what do you mean?
Protected meaning you couldn't possibly lose your job because of racism or something like that.
Sure. No, I'd say there wasn't a form of protection or umbrella, because this was something that the studios were responsible for.
Oh, okay.
The government and the studio created, I guess, somewhat of a partnership.
Yeah.
To have faces of color behind the camera. I think if you go through history, you don't really hear of a black costumer.
Yeah.
You may hear of a black designer.
Yeah.
But it's rare. So we are, for those of us that still do this and that have done this, we are a rare breed. And I always like to say it's an acquired taste.
One thing I always wondered, though, is that, of course, at the same time, you want to do a great job with your craft, but at the same time, are you ever getting starstruck in those early years in the business when you see some of these people? Because I know obviously Lawrence Fishburne, he was not famous when you met him.
Oh, sure.
But I do realize that you worked with the great Paul Winfield and Cicely Tyson and the 1978 movie.
78, I think it was 78. It was King with Cicely Tyson and Paul Winfield and Art Evans. I think maybe 78. There have been, yes. There were times. I think as I grew in this industry, as I matured as a costumer, from the 70s, working, I worked exclusively, actually, for Universal Studios from 1971 to 1980.
Wow.
When I finished my apprenticeship. So during that time, the industry worked as, when you worked exclusively for a studio, when shows went on hiatus, you collected unemployment. And when that studio fired up, it came, and all these shows came, you went back and you had a job.
Oh, that's good.
That's not like that today.
Right.
But see, that's how that worked. And being a young man of color as a costumer at Universal Studios from the 70s, 1970 to 71 to 1980, I had the privilege of working with some of the iconic actors. I was a costumer to Jack Klugman for Quincy.
Oh, Jack, I love him. He was great on The Odd Couple.
Yeah, and I was a costumer to Rock Hudson for Macmillan and Wife.
Awesome.
Let me see. Glenn Ford. The costume of Glenn Ford for the Family Holvac. I did that, and the original Hulk with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby.
Wow.
That's just some of the shows and productions that I had and that I worked on. But see, I worked on them because what we were as a young group of faces, young black group of young black men and women, faces, we were called utility costumers. That meant you go from show to show. You didn't have your own show unless you ended up working on a production that would become your show.
Yeah.
But usually, that's how I can say I worked for this person or that person, because I would come in one day and my name would be, you're going to be with Rock Hudson on Macmillan and Wife this week.
No pressure. No pressure.
Oh, my God, all right, fine, all right, I got it. You know what I'm saying? And then, and then when the studios went on hiatus, then that freed us up to do costumes outside, which was blaxploitation movies.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of those.
So I did Cornbread Oil and Me. I did Black Belt Jones. I did The Hammer. I think those were in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I believe I did Freedom Road.
That's interesting.
With Muhammad Ali and Chris Christopherson.
So you actually met Muhammad Ali?
Yeah, I worked with him.
Well, what was that like? Like that's I can't even imagine what that's like.
That was quite an experience. He was a class guy, I was amazed because when we were filming, in between scenes, when they're setting up and we're setting up scenes, I'd go into the dressing rooms and I'd be hanging clothes and getting ready for the next change. And he'd be lying there, and his handler, his manager, he'd be running lines with his eyes closed. I thought, now, this is amazing. This dude's like, he's running his lines, and he's got his eyes closed, and, but then Muhammad Ali, what can I say? You know what I mean? But that was very impressive. Fun guy.
Was he? Did you ever get the sense that he was the person that he always said in front of the cameras, where he's like, yeah, I'm big, I'm bad, I'm pretty, and nobody can stop me?
Yep.
Was he like that, or was he more down to earth when the cameras were off?
I think a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I'd say a little bit of both. But I mean, he was a prankster. We were shooting, and I think he got a hold to some fireworks because I think we were using them, going to use them, and he's running around with them, setting off fireworks, firecrackers. And then I think one time while we were shooting, we were just in Natchez, Mississippi. John Travolta came by to visit with him. And he was, I guess, just fresh off his thing of
Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, so he came by and stopped by, but that was cool.
Wow.
So that was cool.
Yeah, I'm always reminded of the whole Hollywood thing where it's kind of like an illusion because everyone knows that there's like the dark side of Hollywood, where we're talking about, sex, drugs, rock and roll, chips, dips, chains, and whips. That can swallow anybody up. So with that being said, did you ever fall into those traps and just say, man, this is a candy store?
Oh, of course. I was unsupervised.
Yeah.
I was a young black man in Hollywood, unsupervised.
Wow.
I didn't know what to do with the money I was making. I wasn't a bad guy. I wasn't doing anything outrageously outrageous, but I was doing some outrageous things.
Yeah.
I was living that life without realizing I was living it. Put it like that. So
what is it? Is it like is it easy to get sucked in there? Or
sure, that's what I'm saying. I was living that life without realizing I was living it. So you have access. And it wasn't that. Remember, where I'm at, I make a decent living. A costumist can do quite well, just like anybody below the line.
Yeah,
they can do quite well. and they can live the type of life that they choose to live, and that's what I ended up. I lived that, and so yeah, I got I experienced the dark side on numerous occasions, and I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, ooh, no. It's like here I am. You know what I mean? I was looking for that rush or whatever it was. I was looking for. I found it, got it, and I'm good. And I'm happy to say I had the option to pursue it as long and as often as I chose to do, which is how that worked out.
Yeah.
So I was able to go down a whole lot of different rabbit holes, and explore. I call it Hollywood sex, drugs, and movies.
Wow.
You talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll? Well, that's sex, drugs, and movies.
So are the women as irresistible in that situation, like when you're unsupervised, as they say they are?
Wait a minute. How did I say that again?
Because they make it out. They've always made that life to be, well, the women are just so irresistible. Is that true?
No, that's not always true.
It's just there.
Yeah, it's just there. Hollywood, what we do is we create fantasies so that you go out so that you can see if you can find that. That's what we do.
That's why they call it Hollyweird.
Hollyweird. But then I will say, during my time that I spent there, I was able to live those moments.
Now I know. I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Robin Williams, but
yeah,
Robin.
Of course,
Robin Williams is a legendary comedian and actor, but Robin Williams, apparently he got sucked up into drugs. I heard Eddie Murphy talk about that and how Eddie never got mixed up in that kind of stuff. And why do you think it's so easy, for people that are that talented to get just caught up in something when they have the world already?
I think there's probably a whole lot of reasons. Boredom, looking for something, looking for that next rush. I've done this, now let me do this. Now I'm saying on me, I've done this, now let me do this, and let me do this, to where it becomes boring. Because as you experience those, it gets to a point to where you got to get more just to get this. Whereas before, what got you into it was this got you this.
Wow.
So now you're chasing this, but you're only gonna get this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've done that. Oh, I've been, oh my gosh, yeah. I don't think, and I'm not saying that's what someone has to do, what you got to do. That's just how it turned out for me.
Yeah.
I made my choices. People in the same position that I'm in, with the same opportunities that I have, their choices are different, and they succeed or they don't. Again,
So you got involved in drugs. Was that difficult to kind of manage your career while you're doing that?
No. Because I wasn't trying to OD. I wasn't trying to fuck myself up to the where, but I was trying to fuck myself up, but only when I wasn't working.
Yeah.
And it got to a point to where I did have to stop and be thinking. Because now I'm chasing that buzz.
Yeah.
And I did that.
Were you aware of the problem in Hollywood, whether it was, John Belushi or Richard Pryor, people that were very, very, very successful people, and then they just had these things, the demons. In the case of Belushi, he died from a drug overdose. Were you aware of those things, and that kind of made you step back from it a little bit, or was it just...
I was aware of them, it didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
No, it wasn't, of course I was aware of them. We all were.
Yeah.
It wasn't just me. We all knew It's like when you knew the risk. No, we were all, we were experimenting. We were living our lives to the fullest. Some of us lived it to the point to where we're not here.
Yeah.
But then some of us, we lived it, we enjoyed it, and we're here to talk about it. And the thing that makes it, I think for some of us that have lived and been a part of this world, to be able to experience all of it.
Yeah.
Not some of it, but I mean all of it. And when I say, I mean the ups and the downs, the frustrations, the losses, the wins, the losses. My world. I went from my teens into my adulthood working in the film industry as a costumer.
Yeah.
My world.
Unbelievable.
See, I don't know how many people can say that below the line.
Yeah.
Now, above the line, everybody can talk about being a designer and an actor, and I've aspired to do that now. But below the line and survive. It is equally challenging for those below the line as it is for those above the line. We all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Working to get that job done, get it done, and get it done to the best of our abilities. However, there's this and there's that.
I've heard of that when you're in the industry as an actor, it's still very challenging sometimes to be able to get parts and to really survive in the business, even when you're talented. What is it like when you are on, as you say, below the line, when you're in your situation? Did you find that it was really difficult to survive or find work, or was it just something that just kind of came to you?
No, it was challenging. Well, just like Hollywood, every part of Hollywood, every position is everybody is competing for that position. As a costumer, I'm not the only one. If I'm sending my resume, emailing it, there are 20 other people that have gone online and done the same thing. That hasn't changed.
Okay.
When I started in the industry before, the thing that was impressive back then, it was like how many pages you had, how many pages of your resume. I think mine was at that time 7 pages.
Holy smokes.
And then they said, oh no, that's too, and then you had to physically go and hand these to production companies. And,
wow.
And before the fax machine came out.
Right.
And then we could start faxing. Otherwise we'd have to make phone calls. It was manual. So if they're looking at my resume, there's 10 other resumes for that same position. And that's in every position. Because that's how we do that. That's what we do. And the only reason we do it is because we love what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always great when you have the passion thing and the obsession thing with what you do.
Yeah.
Now, as a kid, I was always enamored with so many great television shows. Different Strokes was one of them. There was also Webster. And then there was a show called Benson. And, the legendary Robert Guillaume. I know that you actually worked on the series Benson, and you were friends with Robert Guillaume.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that experience, because that guy his comedic timing was off the charts.
Robert Guillaume, my friend and mentor. Like you, I watched, soaps and all of that TV, and never thought in my wildest imagination that I would be dressing this guy. I mean, I think I did Benson in the 80s, so I had already been a costumer for quite a few years.
A good bit of time, yeah.
But people of his caliber, actors, producers, specifically actors, they raised the bar for everybody. I had the privilege of working on some other TV shows. That's My Mama, Tony Orlando and Dawn, and Amen during that time.
Really? You worked on Amen?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So Sherman Hemsley, who's more hilarious, Sherman Hemsley or Robert Guillaume?
I think, it could be a tie.
Yeah.
It could be a tie. It could be a tie. But when at the time, when I first met Robert, he was looking for his own personal costumer when he was doing Benson.
Yeah.
And there were, at that time, I think, there really were not very many eligible black costumers in Hollywood that did what we did.
Yeah.
That did costumers for movies, TVs, and sitcoms. And so my friend Martin, the young lady Judy at ABC, called us both in and said, Robert is looking for his own costumer, and you're the two most eligible and available there is. So who wants to go first? And I'm looking at him now. We buddies. And I'm like, yo, man, you guys. No, you guys. You guys. No, you go ahead. And, so he did.
That's so wild. I mean,
and but I ended up, and what I did was I worked in the wardrobe department, prepping the clothes for different shows.
So you dressed him and the governor, the one that played the governor.
No, I just dressed the story is. Let me finish. Get you to that part, right? That's the important part. When my friend Martin, he did 1 week. When his week was up, it was my turn to do a week, and I was very nervous with him. When I first met Robert, here I am I used to look at this guy on television. Now here I am, buttoning up his shirt in his dressing room. And I was buttoning my hands. He says, "Baby, that's okay. You're gonna be all right." That's what he said to me.
You were shaking.
Yeah, because I was nervous. I'm like, here I am with this guy. I wasn't like shaking, but it was like, and so when we finished, she called us both in. She says, "Now, Robert has decided who he wants to be his costumer for the series, for the show." And she said, "Harold, he likes you, so you got the show."
Wow. Home run.
And from there, doing Benson, he became I learned a lot. He was a class act. One of the things about being a costumer is you're fortunate enough to be the costume to someone like Robert Guillaume or, some of the classier actors or actors. They take you into they trust you, and they open themselves up to you and they share with you because it's a back and forth, and it's right there in that dressing room, So the relationship that I had with him was, we shared. Wasn't anything devastating or anything like that, but it was just, we shared, and she said one thing. He says, "Harold, my license plate says, 'Who knew?'" That's what his license plate said. He had a little convertible Mercedes. And I said, "Yeah." He says, "You know what that means?" I said, "No." He says, "When I got this show, who knew that it was going to be a success?"
Wow.
Who knew? So that was on his license plate.
One thing that I'm very, very, very fascinated about is that when you worked on that King series, that was a mini series back in the late 70s. And I know Paul Winfield and Cicely Tyson, they were in that. I know you told me that you had to recreate the scene in which, the real life scene in which Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. As a costumer, I think you said that you had to go back and look at even their clothes for when they first got together, King and Coretta Scott. Just kind of explain what that was like trying to recreate that. And you actually worked closely with Coretta, or was it someone else?
I think Coretta Scott King and the King family, they were somewhat people that helped us, kept us on track, that we could go to and talk to and ask certain questions about costumes or whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
When I got the script King, I had no idea what I was going to be getting into or what it was going to about. Really didn't, King. But when I started looking at the footages to get a sense of the costumes, doing the research and looking at the footages of him, along with my counterpart, female costumer, I think there was a designer. But on my part, looking, because I would have to pull the clothes. The female she would have to pull the women's clothes. I would have to pull all the men's clothes. And whatever the designer was designing for Paul Winfield, I would have to be one of those people responsible for making sure he got into the appropriate outfit, because everything was shot out of continuity. The research was amazing. It's like history, like going to school. And working with Paul Winfield, and working, one of the things that I like about being a costumer, that I like, is you get to collaborate with the actor.
Yeah.
That's up close and personal. And not only was it that way with Paul Winfield, I was able to collaborate with Art Evans, every black actor, every male actor on there. I was able to collaborate with them and talk about the costume, talk about the moment, because that's the other part about that I enjoy being a costumer. When you sit down with an actor and you've read the script and they've read it, then let's talk about how we can create this moment. I have these clothes. Now, let's play dress up. So let's create this moment. Let's talk what fits good, what feel, and we're talking through the action. We're talking through all the because this is a pivotal moment in the script or a movie. So I want them to be as comfortable in what they're wearing and the movement as they can possibly be, because now we both put it together. Now they know what it feels like, they know what it looks like, because they've been looking at themselves. We've been doing this in front of a mirror. It ain't just me telling you, ooh, you look good. It's like a 3-sided mirror.
Did it feel really emotional, kind of reliving something that the nation really mourned for so long? And at this point, it had only been about 10 years since he was killed.
Yeah, it was emotional. It was. Yeah. Like I said, there's certain movies that I worked on that you get involved. I was in that. I was in that. I was in it from a creative perspective from what I was doing. And it can get pretty emotional. It really can. And you really don't think that. I can name several productions that I've worked on to where, based on that actor's performance, that I'm intimately connected with as that costumer, based on their performance and what I've seen, it brings me to tears. And when I look out there, the audience is feeling the same way. But the thing is, for me and this actor to collaborate and put this together, and knowing that I'm responsible for this reaction, and that, of course, they're doing a good job acting. Yeah, it's a moment. It's a heck of a moment.
So what are some of the other things that you can think of that you got emotional about?
Men of Honor with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro.
You work with De Niro?
Yeah, I work with De Niro.
What is that like? What is that like?
Robert De Niro was quite. I think that was the first time I was like, Robert De Niro type thing.
Yeah.
I'm working with Cuba Gooding Jr. I'm working with everybody. But the minute and then when I watched him act, I was even more amazed because I learned something about acting watching him.
What'd you learn?
There was a scene, and he had a dialogue coach, and he's doing this scene, and the dialogue coach is throwing him lines, and they're rolling, and he's repeating the lines as they're being thrown, as he's being thrown. Get up and do this. So the lines, and then he'd say them. And he would hold the position. He wouldn't like be jumping all around. He'd stop, and they'd throw him the line, and he'd say the line in that position because that's what he's doing. And so I had the privilege of working on a small movie once, and I was supposed to be a godfather. And I had the guy, the director, he was sitting right off camera with the script and running and tossing me the lines. I thought that was the coolest thing.
That is cool.
So yeah, working with Robert Guillaume, Robert De Niro and Cuba Gooding Jr. and everybody else, that entire cast was, amazing. It was amazing. And the emotional moment with that, was one where I was constantly going back and forth because Carl Brashear, I assumed that, my assumption is that we had a dressing room for him and he could be on the set, but he chose to be in the dressing room because this was the scene where he chose to have his leg amputated. So probably an emotional moment for him. But I was going back and forth asking him questions about the costume, how you felt, so I was creating the sweat, and all that was based on conversation that he and I were having. But then the last scene where Robert De Niro and Cuba Gooding Jr. are in that weighted outfit.
Yeah.
And he says, "Give me my 12 steps." It was an emotional moment for me because I know this guy now. Even though this is a story being told about, as close to the reality as possible. But now I see this guy. I see why he was a Navy diver and his determination with one leg, and he became a master diver. So every time I see that, I think that is probably one of, and then there's there's several other things that I've done that I've had those moments.
It just speaks to your greatness. And speaking of your greatness, I actually have here, you were recognized in Upscale magazine in 1997 as being a celebrity wardrober and one of the notable people in terms of African Americans. I look here, and I'm looking at this note that was to the assistant editor, and they were trying to contact Upscale magazine in 1996. In 97, you appeared in the magazine, and it says here that you were currently working on the set of the television sitcom Living Single, and that you selected the clothing that we see worn every week by actors T.C. Carson and John Hinton, including male guest stars. And it says that you recently completed 4 seasons of working on the set of Hanging with Mr. Cooper, where you were responsible for Mark Curry's wardrobe. You were also a wardrober for the Phantom of the Opera, Les Miserables, and the Academy Awards, Eddie Murphy's Royal Family, The Robert Guillaume Show, and Living Color, many more. Now, this is 1996, and it talks about how you were in the business already at about 30 years.
Yeah.
And this was almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So if that's not a pioneering career, career of exceptionalism, I don't know what is, but I want you to speak to that. What was it like working with Living Single? I think we all have heard of Living Single, Hanging with Mr. Cooper. These are some of the great sitcoms. I don't want to minimize them by saying great black sitcoms, but they were some of the great. Walk me through this, because that is so iconic and historic, especially for an African American to do that after having started decades before.
that, again, the 70s was one era. And then during the 70s, of course, you had black exploitation movies. That was the beginning of an explosion for black entertainment in Hollywood. But black exploitation movies was the first thing. Everybody was all the Jewish people were investing. Oh, they're making, and we're investing. I always say we were barnstormers. We were making movies like flying by the seat of our pants. Sometimes we get paid, sometimes we wouldn't. Depends. It really would depend. But it also depends on your commitment to what you do. I love what I did.
So the 90s changed all that when you were on Living Single and...
Yeah, the 70s, the 80s is where we had the explosion of black television.
Cosby.
Yeah.
A Different World.
All of that.
Family Matters.
Yeah, Family Matters, everything. The Benson. And see, that was that generation. And then the new generation, hey, Mr. Cooper, Living Single, Eve, it was a whole new set of actors, a whole new set of generation. So it was in the 80s, we were establishing ourselves. Because see, when you look at those people in the 80s, you don't see them in the 90s. They were laying the foundation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So each decade creates a whole new crop of actors, but the first decade is laying the foundation for that crop of actors to exist.
How much of that do we owe to Cosby? Because Cosby, in the 1980s, he did something that was completely and totally unprecedented for a black television show. How much do we owe that? Even the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that would not exist.
I think a lot. I'd say a lot. I mean, in spite of the thing, how things have ended up for him today.
Yeah.
I think we owe him a lot. We owe black people like him, performance artists like him. We owe them a lot. Oh my gosh, I worked on that show. I can't call the name. He was the first. He used to have called Leroy. Had a boyfriend named Leroy, a dude dressed as a woman, and had a TV show. I worked on that show.
And you worked on Fat Albert too, right?
The movie Fat Albert, yes, I did. Yeah. So,
wow.
A lot of, but yeah. So this industry has, there's been a lot of changes. Working, I guess that what you were reading. It took a minute to do that, but it didn't happen all over. It didn't. The way you read it off is like it happened like that. Boom, boom. It didn't. You're talking about 30 years. A whole lot went on.
The fact that it happened at all is what's exceptional.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing is you're paving the way for people.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah, there's a whole lot that went on, back then. As I said, it's changed today to where it's not as it's a whole different mindset. The competition is different. Doesn't matter. The competition is whether it be hair, makeup, wardrobe, film, camera, lighting. The competition is different. You can phone it in now. So you can almost, phone it in. So it takes away from those moments of being creative.
One of the great comedians in our history is Red Fox. I think people of pretty much every generation has seen at least one episode of Sanford and Son and You Big Dummy, I give you five across your lip. That kind of thing. So with that being said,
that's pretty good.
Right.
You big dummy. Oh, Lamont.
That's good.
But
really good.
But I know, so he had kind of a revival in 1991 when the Royal Family came on. Because he had been in Harlem Nights, the vehicle with Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor himself, Della Reese, Jasmine Guy, Michael Lerner. That came out in 1989. So 91, Eddie Murphy produced the Royal Family for CBS. I know that you were a part of that show, and you were actually were close with Red Fox at a time. And I'm fascinated by that because he seems like a larger than life person, even though he's been gone for, it'll be 34 years this year.
Oh, wow. It's been that long?
Yeah, it'll be 34 years.
That I've been doing this for 30. God damn it. You just called off a number. I didn't even think I didn't even know they had that number for me. 34.
Right.
34 years ago.
So, he died October 11th, 1991. Now, you said that you were on the set when that was about to take place. So, kind of walk us through how that went.
Red Fox was cool. We were friends. It's one of the things I like about being in costume. I always say that. I think I've said that a few times. Is, you get with actors and you become friends, and that's pretty cool. So, he and I were that way, and he was naturally funny. He was bigger than life.
Yeah.
Even when when he walked on the sound stage, and just walked on the sound stage and turned around and looked at you, the way he would look at you, you just knew what was coming.
Yeah.
He was that kind of, it wasn't malicious. It was like he was just naturally a funny guy. He was a great guy.
It was what he was put here to do.
Yeah. And I had the privilege of working with him on that. So, that's a story I just don't talk about very much. I just know that I leave that.
It was very sad that whole day.
That was when he asked me to go and I went to get something, and I was gone about 5 minutes, and I had to come back. It was deep. It was different. Anyhow, yeah. But now, one of the things I said, being friends with him, we were shooting right next door to Arsenio Hall.
My God, I was obsessed with that show.
Well, we were right next door to the Arsenio Hall show.
That's Stage 29 in Paramount Studios on Melrose Avenue.
Look at you.
That's how much.
Yeah, Stage 29. What stage? I think we were either 27 or 28.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Red Fox was on the episode, the October 9th, 1991 episode. 2 days later, he died.
He, when we were working one day, and Arsenio had been trying to get him to come over. And we had finished early. And he said, "Hey, Raggz, hey, what you doing, man?" I said, "Listen, I'm going over here to Arsenio. I don't want some of your crew, get some of you guys to come over here and sit in the audience while I'm out there talking to him." I said, "Okay." So he's sitting there and said, and I think he said, and I got my friend, and he waved at us out in the audience. But we were just friends.
Yeah.
One of the things about being a personal costumer or a dresser for an actor is you get to know everything about them, their ups and their downs, what's going on in their lives, and it sometimes being that confidant helps them when they're getting ready to go out there and be on front of the camera.
Yeah.
So I've had the privilege of sometimes pep talking. Like, "Yo, man, you got this. Come on, you can do this. Yeah. Come on now. All right."
And that's interesting because on that episode, he had pointed out Lorenz Tate in the audience, saying it was his grandson?
Yeah, played his grandson. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were all in the audience when he pointed Lorenz Tate out. I was in the audience. That was the night that we were in the audience.
Oh, so you actually watched the taping of Arsenio?
No, I was in the taping.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When he pointed out Lorenz, he was asked everybody. He said, "Hey, yeah, man, you must be on, don't want me to come over and be on the show. Come on over here and go and sit with me."
That's awesome.
So that's when that's what he was pointing out, because we were all sitting in the audience.
What was it like meeting Arsenio, or even just being in the room?
I didn't get too close to Arsenio. He had a whole different troop of people.
Yeah,
You know.
that's a different level right there.
Yeah, a whole nother level.
Yeah,
You know.
I was a massive fan of Arsenio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, actually won a book award when I was in 6th grade for writing a 10-page book about him.
Oh, really?
Yep, called it was Young Authors of America, 1989. Is
Wow.
when his show started in '89, and as you can see up here,
real?
you see what that wrought with those 9 books. But yeah,
Are you serious? You
Yeah.
wrote about him?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Want to meet him?
I never got a chance to. When we were on the show, as I said, we were just in the audience. They let us to the audience, so where Red Fox could see us. And then I did Coming to America.
The original one,
Yeah,
1988.
yeah.
But now they shot that in New York City.
New York and in California.
Wow, that's
on the desert.
That's incredible. So that was Zamunda. The desert was actually in California.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
So did you get close to Eddie?
I got as close as I could get. Possibly get.
He was ginormous at that time.
He was ginormous, and everybody, people like Eddie Murphy and Arsenio, they were in a whole nother place. Again, a whole nother place than they are today.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, I know. I was living and breathing.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson and Eddie Murphy at the time, like massive stars.
Yeah. They were. But I worked around them. I didn't work with them. That again, there are different levels of costuming. There are different levels of people that a designer brings in their own crew. So, but that was cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I know throughout the 90s, like I said, you did also all these great things. You've been around so many people. And then into the 2000s, I know you did the famous Everybody Hates Chris. And I got to tell you, I'm such a big fan of Terry Crews. I love Chris Rock. But Chris Rock is an iconic comedian to me. But just knowing that he had a hand in that show and was really kind of the stimulus for that to even become what it became.
Oh, sure.
So what was it like? I mean, being around Terry Crews. I mean, this guy seems like a man's man. He's like so big and macho. Is he what he seems, or is he different?
He's exactly what he seems. He was when we worked on we were working on Everybody Hates Chris. Terry Crews would get to the studio early to work out.
Looks like it.
He would have done about 2-3 miles around. That was his focus, and he was a guy. He was fun. He was a lot of fun. Everybody was. That whole crew, that whole cast, the whole crew. I think and Chris Rock, the directors the guest directors and all the actors that wanted to be a part of. You saw an A-list of old school actors show up on the show. My old friend Antonio Fargas was there, and a few other people.
What about Jimmy Walker? Did he ever show up?
Jimmy Walker was on there.
Wow.
Yeah, he played the grandfather. Clarence William III. He was a guest on there. He and I worked together years back in the day. So yeah, it was fun. It was like sometimes it would be like cool hanging out with these old school guys.
Yeah. So what is it like with Jimmy Walker? I mean, this guy will forever be J.J. Evans.
He was J.J. Evans.
He was.
He was still J.J. He could be J.J. at the drop of a hat.
There was an episode of Good Times where JJ he went and bought all of these clothes with the money that he had, and then Walona said, JJ, why don't you start saving your money instead of spending it on clothes? And then he said, because from the women I get more interest this way.
I don't know what that meant, but okay, I think it made sense to him.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
That is.
Yeah, so that you got a chance to be around him.
Yeah.
Now, Chris Rock, I know Chris Rock, this was, 20 years ago you were on that show?
Mm-hmm.
Chris Rock, did he ever come around you? What was it like being around him if he did?
It was cool. Yeah, I got a picture with he and I. I got a picture with Chris and me, Chris, and what's his name?
Terry Crews.
Terry Crews. Yeah. I got a picture of all three of us together.
Because he's such a big comedian, like international known.
Oh, he is. He is. But you know what? When he showed up, you never know who he was because he was so low key. He was the executive producer. That was his baby.
Yeah.
You know, him and Ali Leroy. You know.
And the guy who played the kid, who played what's his
Tyler
name?
Williams.
Yeah, Tyler Williams.
Oh gosh, those guys, those little rascals.
Tyler Williams.
Tyler Williams, Imani Hakeem, and the little white kid. They were a mess. We had fun. That was a fun production to work on for 4 seasons.
And they shot that at where?
Paramount Studios.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's really impressive. Oh, you know, over the course of all these years, though, you got to see all these things, live the high life and things like that. I know you had your stumbles. What was the most challenging thing to go through your own personal struggles while maintaining this type of career that was extremely important to you?
What was the
struggles that you dealt with?
The biggest struggle?
Yeah, because I know you said that you stumbled. I know you said that
Sure.
you made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. What was the nature of that?
Oh, that's a good question. Because there was so many things that happened to me. I would say one of the things that was a challenge for me was discipline.
Yeah,
Being disciplined.
that's hard for everybody.
You know what I mean? Because living that lifestyle was quite interesting, and it was almost like a TV lifestyle because when you look at the soaps, you see all these people running around. Where do they work at?
Exactly.
You see everybody showing up dressed nice, and where are they working at?
I know Victor Newman works at Newman Enterprises.
Yeah, but where the fuck is that at? You know what I mean? But where do they? So I thought about that, and I said, wait a minute, I'm running. This seems to be like my life. I'm running around here. I make a lot of money when I'm working. I have everything, and then when I'm not working, I'm still getting paid. But I'm not disciplined. I'm not disciplined with my money. So I'm just living. Sometimes, hand them out, homeless, broke, all of those things. And then some.
So you were homeless,
Oh, sure.
even when you were in the business.
Oh, sure. I've been, I would end up, and again, it's like managing my money. I would end up sleeping on somebody's couch. I'd go home, sleep on my parents' couch. Next thing I know, I get a script. Boop, I got a script and run a movie.
Back in business.
Back in business.
And this was something that was probably a recurring theme in your life.
Yeah, among other things.
Right.
Yeah. But I attribute that to not having, sometimes people ask me, so if there's anything that you could change about your life, what would it be? I said, having a mentor. If I could change anything, that's what if there's one thing that I would like, if there was something that you missed in your life, on your career, not change, I missed. And I would say, yeah, I miss having a mentor. As back then in the 60s, 70s, as a young man of color, stepping into a world of entertainment with a working knowledge and no one to prepare you on any level.
Yeah.
Here you are.
And you never had an agent.
No, I think I had a few agents every now and then, but
They're not really mentors. They're just more about the business.
yeah.
So your parents, how long did you have your parents around?
Oh, my mom until 95, my dad 95,
Okay.
my other dad 101. They were around a long time. But my parents, my relationship with my parents wasn't a bad one. I was just never around. I wasn't around because I was doing anything wrong. I was around because I was living my life, working in the film industry, making movies.
Yeah.
So when I sat down and had a conversation with my parents, it wasn't about getting some advice.
Yeah.
I enjoyed being able, when I was making money, to give my parents money. I enjoyed that. Coming home, going to Palm Springs, California. Hey, I'm working in Hollywood. I'm going to Palm Springs. Here, Mom. Here, Dad. But then that was when I was younger. And still, even though I was younger, still the one thing, not having that person, it doesn't have to be in the industry.
Yeah.
But someone that I had a relationship with, that I had a high regard for, a high respect, and it didn't mean that it wasn't taking anything from my dad, because he was there for me. People ask me about my dad. I say, well, my father, we raised each other.
I can understand that.
He was a young man when I showed up at his doorstep. I was the last thing he expected to see. And this was the last place I expected to be, but here we are.
So you didn't meet him as a child?
Oh, sure. Oh, my mom and dad had divorced. He lived in Los Angeles.
So he was away from you.
My dad lived in Los Angeles. My mom had remarried. Her and my second dad, they lived in Palm Springs. So when I ran away from Palm Springs to go to Los Angeles. Well, actually, I went to Banning and ended up in Los Angeles, which was the best thing that could have happened to me. And like I said, my dad asked me what I wanted to do, and I told him. So he accepted that responsibility, and we raised each other. He supported me. He gave me whatever I wanted. He was a working man, but it was just he and I. So I had the best of everything. I never went without.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I had to be out in the street. If I was out in the street, it was because that's where I wanted to be. It wasn't because I was broke.
Yeah.
I was the only kid, I think, going to Compton High that had a $85 a week allowance.
Wow. Especially back then, that's huge.
Yeah. Because my dad worked nights. He says, yes, son. So,
wow. And here we are. You're in a position where, like, currently in this moment, you're going to be celebrating a birthday at the end of this month. At the same time, you just completed, or you're close to completing, a film. And at this point in your career, 55 years in, more than a half century, let that sink in. You are also going to be honored in so many different ways that we don't want to really talk about right now.
Not right now, but we will.
But we will definitely talk about it. There's a lot of honors. It's like you really need to be inducted into some type of Hall of Fame. But I would like to kind of propose this whole thing that I believe everything that you've endured, and you didn't go through anything, you grew through many things. I would like to propose the notion that these things, all this success that you have accomplished, I believe that the success and the wisdom has taken place because you went through those things. It happened not in spite of, but because of you went through those things, because we all know that the power is in the valley where you learn. You learn in the valley. You learn much more in the valley than you do on the top of the mountain. And I think that your life has been one recurring theme of that same. It's almost like a rerun, so to speak, in show business parlance. It's like a continuous rerun. It's like success, stumble, fall apart, dust yourself off, get back up, rinse, repeat. And I think that if it were not for those so-called trials and tribulations and those missteps, I don't think that you would be as polished as you are, as knowledgeable as you are, as successful as you are. And we all know that, to God be the glory. I mean, God is always the one that's in charge. And I think that's exactly, you have lived a godly life, I feel. That's what I feel. And when I say godly, it doesn't mean you haven't made your mistakes. It doesn't mean that the enemy knows our weaknesses, of course. I believe that even with that, you still rise above it all, because
you still arise.
Yeah, you still do that. I'm so extremely and extraordinarily proud of you. I'm inspired by you. I think that you are a living legend. I think that even in time immemorial, you will always be a living legend. Whether you're alive or not, you'll still be a living legend. And I just want to thank you for all of your mentorship, because everything you say is mentorship as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, how do you see yourself?
I see myself as just one of the boys.
Exactly.
I just like being one of the boys. To be acknowledged and to be allowed to share my story, to tell my story, to talk about my life, to talk about my journey. I consider that quite an honor. And I hope joining along the way that somebody learned something, that something is learned.
I have. I've learned a lot.
Because I got one simple rule, was given one simple piece of advice. And that is, for the past 55 years, has been my rule of thumb and the key to my successes and failures. And he said, this young man, friend of mine, photographer, he said, Harold, always remember, as long as you can work your craft, money's going to follow.
Yeah.
That's all he said. Now, we've been smoking and eating brownies and drinking tea, but that stuck in the Hollywood Hills in 1971. So here it is, all these years later. When someone asks me what's the best advice that I can give to anyone stepping into any part of life, but specifically into the world of the arts, because it's unpredictable. There's a lot.
Yeah.
I say to them, sometimes, as long as you can work your craft, you'll make the money. Sometimes you'll make a little bit of money. Sometimes you make a lot of money, and then sometimes you make no money. But the thing is, you're working your craft. See, as long as you're working your craft, you're going to always make some money. But if you're not working your craft, then your name can't be out there. Nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
I've worked for a lot of money. I've been broke. But it was all about the craft. See, now I can look back and I can see my name on all those little old things. But see, the little things are what gets you to the big things. So as long as you can work your craft, it will follow.
That's a mic drop. I tell you what, that reminds me of the immortal Frank Sinatra. I've been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet, a pawn, and a king. I've been up and down and all around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's life.
That's life.
I salute you, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.